So it's 2026 and we're 2 months in already. It'll be Christmas before you know it. That's how it feels to me these days. And of course, it's an election year for us. And I propose, it's not unique to me, that this is going to be one of the most consequential election cycles, not only at the federal level, but especially in our state, in generations. We have a variety of things going on. But first of all, at the federal level, of course, we have the midterms. There is a distinct effort by those who are in the opposition, Democrats, leftists, and so on and so forth, to try to convince you that our president is failing and unpopular. And I call baloney on that, but that's the effort. And so there are folks obviously on the left who are making this case, but there are even those among our own ranks who are making this case. They may actually believe it. I don't know. Maybe they're just watching the wrong media. I don't know. But that seems to be the effort in order to try to undermine our president from his base during this election cycle. And all I need to know is our senior senator is hugging that endorsement from Donald John Trump like his life depends on it. And if he and he, you know, say what you will, he's a polished and experienced politician, and he knows which way the wind blows. So if anybody tries to tell you that Trump is unpopular, just have them go talk to Lindsey Graham. So we are in the age of Trump, and one of the things that he's highlighted for us is the extent, you know, we had Doge to start with, it's still ongoing, is the extent to which public money, shall we say, is just not well spent. At the federal level, they have uncovered insane amounts of money that are going to the wrong, that is being weaponized against us, in essence. And at the state level, I don't know how many people follow the thing with Minnesota, right? The fraud and is going on there. So it's not just the federal level; it's at the state level.
Local level.
It's at the
local level.
And well, if it's public money, that would be a safe bet, right? That would be a safe bet. And you might think, well, hey, you know, we're South Carolina, we're a Republican state, we're pretty well run, you know, economically conservative. Well, I would suggest that in the 90s, we had Operation Lost Trust. I don't know how many of y'all were around here for that. I was not, but, you know, I read about it online. In the 10s, we had the Quindom scandal that resulted in the retirement and of a sitting Speaker of the House. We had, and I'm sure we'll hear some more about this when Mike comes up, but we had a $1.8 billion just kind of go missing from the state somehow. They assure us everything was on the up and up now. They had an audit and it was okay. And, you know, these numbers that get thrown around, we hear about the illions, the millions, right? And the billions, and at the federal level, we hear about the trillions. It's like, okay, what does that really mean? Well, some of you may have heard this. I find a nice way to visualize this is 1 million seconds. Does anybody know how long 1 million seconds is? What it comes out to? I'm sorry? It's 11 days. 11 days. Okay. 1 billion seconds is 31 years. And 1 trillion seconds is 31,000 years. So if you need a way to visualize all these different denominations, I find that's useful. And so, you know, 1.8 billion went missing. That's not trivial. And even last year, the sitting AG, who's running for governor now, issued indictments for Medicare fraud. So it's not as though we don't have issues, and we're going to hear some more about that here in a few minutes. Here in our state, we spend $40 billion each year in the budget, and there's a lot of room for malfeasance, shall we say. Folks that work in Columbia now might have an idea about that. So we saw the State of the Union the other night, and you know, it's clearly Republicans versus Democrats, and at this point, the Democrat Party is, you know, they're running toward the cliff and hitting the accelerator pedal. It's just wild to see what they embrace. And that's the story up in D.C. But here in South Carolina, as you all know, we're a Republican state. The Republican Party hadn't always been that way, ever since construction it was Democrats. But that's about 20 years ago, the Republicans have held all the meaningful state offices. Now, I know you get down to the school board or you get down to the library board, that's not necessarily true. But statewide, we dominate. They have we have the governor, we have the super majority in the houses and House and Senate. So the real tension that we have, and if you've heard me before, this is my hobby horse. We have tension within the party. There are those who are within our party that want to see government grow. Now, they'd like to do it at a pace that we don't notice, but regardless, and that's what we call the establishment, just as a handy dandy term. And then you have us, the grassroots. What we'd like to see grow is freedom. Yeah, freedom and prosperity. Well, you can't do both at the same time. So there's a natural tension within our party here in the state. And so one of the results of that is that the meaningful elections take place in the Republican primaries. Waiting until November doesn't do us any good, right? So mark your calendar, June 9th. If you don't already know, June 9th are the Republican primaries. And we have, as I say, in this state, we have a generational opportunity. The governorship is up. There's at least one candidate who's talking loud and proud about anti-corruption. The Attorney General's office is up. And again, a competitive race. And one candidate clearly talking about corruption. He's got the record to back it up. Other offices, we have local races, we have state house races that are important as well. Many are challenged, but June 9th is D-Day for us. So voting would be great, but more than that, we all need to be in the fight. We all need to be networking with our like-minded friends anywhere in the state. It doesn't just have to be in the county, right? And do what you can to try to make sure that people who are the grassroots are making sure to get out to vote. Because we have one problem, right? We have open primaries, and Democrats know they can come vote in our primaries and vote for the most liberal candidate. So we have to overcome that in our races. So I can't emphasize it enough. This is not the last time you're going to hear this from me, unless you don't come anymore, because okay, can't help that. So I just can't overstate it enough. All right. Along those lines, tonight our guest speaker is a man who's running for Comptroller General, Mike Burkhold. Yes. I think he's only. Oh, what's happening? Hey now, Denise. Well, anyway, okay, so that's fine.
Is that okay?
Comptroller General. I got a little introduction for you, Mike. If you're like me, you say, I'm not exactly sure what that job is, or why it's important, or why I should care. I've heard him speak before. Y'all were here last June. You have too. And what I can tell you is this is a reform election cycle. And in addition to governor and in addition to the attorney general, this role, if you care about how does our money get spent, this is the job right here, Comptroller General, that allows us to have any visibility to it or not. So without further ado, Mike.
Thank you.
Tell us.
All right. Thank you. So thank you. Thank you very much. It's always such a pleasure for me to be back in York County. My wife and I lived here from maybe 91 to 99. Loved it. I ended up being the town administrator for the town of Clover for about 4 years. We lived down in Swan Meadows too, which is off India Hook Road. Had a lot of great friends here. And in 98, I ended up being the congressional candidate to run against John Spratt. And it's got a lot of nice fun memories. We kicked it off at the Armory with Oliver North. And we had Newt Gingrich down to the technical college. It was a great race. Not the best year for Republicans. That was a year that Jim Hodges beat David Beasley for governor. So you may not have been here, but we had a Democrat actually defeat an incumbent Republican governor. After I left Rock Hill, we ended up moving back down to Charleston, where we had gone to school. I started a business, raised a family, and largely just got out of politics. I mean, I enjoyed politics. I obviously loved it. I ran a congressional race. I would come speak to people every night of the week. I like doing this. But built a nice business down in Charleston and sold that in 2019. And this is relevant for y'all to know, it processes pharmacy claims. So there's a lot of financial transactions and settlements. And so I sold that and was sitting on my porch last year and wrote a tax check. And generally, when I write my tax checks, I have this kind of like whatever type of feel about where the money goes. And came back and sat on my porch and was a kind of a modern way to do things these days, was soothing myself, having written that check by doom scrolling on my phone. And I was on Fitz News reading, I'm sure it was all the Murdoch stuff. And I saw that the state had lost $3.5 billion, and I kept scrolling, and I thought, hold on a second. I had to go back, so that had to have been million. Because how do you lose $3.5 billion? And I went back, and it was billion, and then I started going through the headlines, because all this happened in 23, and it was just kind of lost, found, lost. Where is it? Somebody stole it. I mean, it's Fitz News headlines. And and then there's another $1.8 billion missing as well. What in the world is going on in Colombia? And when I put all that together, I'm not all that challenged at work right now, and I can go do my own thing. And I decided, you know what? I'm going to go find out where my money goes. I'm going to go take over the books of the state, and I'm going to find out where my money goes, and I'm going to tell everybody else where their money goes. And that's essentially why I'm running for this office. I mean, I've hired bunches of accountants and bunches of people that process claims. We've been told that most of these errors are data processing and data mapping errors. Fine, we'll figure that out. I want to point out that in all the reports where they've said we've had $3.5 billion and $1.8 billion in data mapping errors, there has been no report that shows where those data mapping errors really were. So I've still got to go find in some more details, because I'm willing to believe what I'm told, but I am going to go back to the basics and figure out where those data mapping errors were to be sure if that's really the truth. Because here's why one of the reasons, the things that bothers me the most about the story, that hopefully some of y'all knew, but if you didn't know it, you got the gist right now, is that the story is these are data mapping errors that existed for about 10 years, okay, from 2012 or 13 till about the time everything was found, okay? Well, I'm going to give you some details that you guys may want to know, but I think it's really important because this has to do with your money, is that in 2007, we went to a new accounting system statewide. And so, fair enough, we were taking data from systems that were built in the 60s and the 70s and the 80s and putting that data into a new system. Well, anybody reasonably will think some of this data is probably not accurate, right? That would not be surprising if you're just taking old state data and putting it into a new system, right? It's like, it's really no different than when I merged my Google address book with my Apple iPhone address book. I get all these duplicates and stuff. So, but much more complicated, right? So the problem is, if we knew all those errors were issues with mapping, why didn't we have essentially a bounty on errors? It seems simple enough. There's people that like finding issues and solving issues. Why didn't we start going after all those errors? I don't know the answer to that, but here's what I do know. I do know that the Comptroller General knew about all these issues, okay? That means the Comptroller General's staff knew about all these issues. Our state auditor knew about all these issues. Our state auditor resigned over this. Y'all might have missed that. Our state auditor's staff knew about all these issues. Our external auditor knew about all these issues. And it all came up like it was a big surprise in 2022 or 3 because of all the COVID money that came in. What happened was issues that people had been kind of able to tuck away. When all that money hit the books, it just blew up and it became really obvious that we had a lot of accounting issues. And so the issue is, for me, as I look at this seat, is it's unreasonable to me that you don't have not just a controller, but an auditor and an external auditor and all of the other people who would have been associated with this who don't care to be sure that that your money is well accounted for. That really bothers me. We all deserve better than that, okay? Because we all worked hard for this money. And the problem I see with that, well, there's a couple. The problem I see with that is it's a lazy attitude. And if they have a lazy attitude towards the bookkeeping, I mean, if you ever hire people, if you got somebody that's got a lazy attitude towards one thing, it's generally a lazy attitude towards everything else, right? And so the idea that there's any rigor behind the accounting, I think would be an illusion, okay? It doesn't make any sense. And so I've got essentially 3 jobs, and it's the same 3 jobs that we talked about when I came up here the first time, Scott, is I've got to rebuild an office that has a good culture that understands that these are your tax dollars and they need to be properly accounted for, okay? We need to be sure that everything that comes into the state is properly accounted for. That's job number 1. Job number 2, we're paying a lot of bills that we don't know what they are. And I'll tell you why I'm telling you that. The treasurer told me, so the important thing here about how the controller's seat works, I kind of jumped into this thinking most folks know, but I had to do all this research. The Comptroller General, I'm going to pause right here, constitutional statewide officer, kind of the cousin of your Attorney General. The Attorney General's in charge of your laws, Comptroller General's in charge of all the money, okay? In charge of all the money and all the accounting rules. The Comptroller General approves all invoices the state pays. This goes back to the good news that I'm going to be able to tell y'all where all your money's going. And that's the exciting part of this. We're approving 265,000 invoices a month off of a staff of about 19 people and old technology. So y'all can just draw your own conclusions. Do you think that there's any rigor behind that? I don't think so. I think it's highly likely that we're paying invoices that we shouldn't be paying on contracts that are expired. Certainly likely that we're paying on the wrong rates on things. We've got to figure that out. That's a great tool for AI to help us with, okay? So we've got to fix the culture. We've got to fix the invoices, and then everything has to be transparent. I can't remember who I was telling the story to. I had a guy call me for a meeting, and I met him on Tuesday. And he's one of these people that we know lives in South Carolina, but I don't know where he comes from. He was an investor, worked for a big investment firm in London and then Dubai, and they've got a house in Charleston, a house in Switzerland, and all this other stuff. And he's really interested in the state. So this is a financially well-versed man. And he said, well, and he prepared for our meeting. He said, I've spent 5 hours going through the state's finances. I've read the CAFR. I've read all the accountants. I've been on the websites. I've seen whatever the state has to offer. I had my team to pull this information for me. And after 5 hours of research, I know nothing more about the state than when I started. Right? So this is a person who's well-versed in financials, and he's right. Right now, there is nothing. If a man with that type of advanced knowledge of finance can't go and understand where our money is going, that's a real problem. And so we're going to use new technology to make sure everybody here can understand where their dollars go. money, by the way, not just going out, money coming in. Because we're always told, I think there's some, I don't know. We don't hear a lot about the income in the state. I don't know if y'all ever noticed that. We always hear about the expense. We don't hear a lot about the income. I think there's probably some differences there that could help us improve our roads and everything else. But essentially, you're going to see the state treated like a business. You're going to see all the money that comes in and where it comes from. You're going to see all the money that goes out and what it goes to. And look, some of the realities as we get into this stuff may just be hard realities. I mean, I know every time it's time for us to replace an AC unit or a roof, I'm like, what do you mean it costs that much? I mean, some things, they're just surprising how much they cost. I bet asphalt is just really expensive, right? So things probably just are more expensive than we want them to be. But that's where we need to get to a level of discussion and discourse about our budget that allows us to have an educated discourse, okay? And by the way, something that I learned that surprised me was I assumed that when we elected House members and members of the Senate and we send them away to Columbia and they're going to go clean up the swamp, I assumed they had information about the budget that the average person does not have. And I have come to learn that's not true. I have had more than a few House or Senate members call me, like out of the blue, and say, we're really excited about what you're doing because we've been wanting to do a deep dive into the state's budget, and it's just really not that accessible. And that needs to change. I mean, that means, if that's really the case, that means that we can't expect the legislature to be making the right decisions if they don't have access to the right data. Okay. And so, and I know we've got at least one House member in here. Actually, here's my view on the thing. Okay. And this is, I don't know how popular this will be with the legislature. We have a legislature that says we live in a strong legislative state. Okay. Well, certainly they're stronger than the governor. My view is they're in session, what, 4 months? About right? 4 months. They got to pass a $42 billion budget in 4 months. Okay? 3 days a week? Okay. That's not a lot of time, right? And so my entire premise at this point, based on everything I've seen, is if you compare the branches, the legislature, the judiciary, and the governor, the legislature is definitely stronger. But if I had to say, right, which one's the strongest, I'm going with the bureaucracy right now, okay? Because they withhold information, they'll stonewall it. You guys got you passed the budget, first budget already, right? First part of the budget went out already. And, so that was 4 weeks in session. You start asking these departments, where's our money going? They're not giving details. We're supposed to be doing zero-based budgets. They're not doing zero-based budgets. So it's a mess. I mean, I think the state just right now, the state kind of rolls on. We're making a bunch of money right now because we got the state's really prosperous. And so it's easy times to be kind of lazy with the money. And that's what allowed the 3.5 and the $1.8 billion errors to go on. It's really been generally prosperous in this state since 2012. And people are going to be lazy with stuff. But what if times get hard? I think there's hard times ahead for our country. I mean, right now, our budget is broken into, and my campaign consultant tells me not to get too much into details, but I'm going to avoid that because it's your money, okay? We have essentially 3 budgets. We've got a general fund budget that's about $14 or $15 billion. That's your state income tax and sales tax and other fees and stuff. We've got other funds, which is about $14 billion-ish, okay? Other funds are things like gas tax and university tuition and lottery funds, okay? They have to be spent in specific ways. And then we've got another $14 billion in federal match that pays for most of our social programs, okay? At some point, the federal government's not going to be able to give us $14 billion in federal match if we can't borrow the money correctly and if Washington doesn't manage itself right. I'm very concerned that they're going to have to say, hey, we can't give you 14 billion, it's going to be 7. You got to figure out how to make up the difference. And if we're not good stewards of our money, we're not going to be prepared for that eventuality. And that's one of my main concerns. And the other one is just generally, because I've built a business and I run it, is if everything in Columbia is as lazy as this accounting was, right, then the money that we are deploying is likely not deployed in the most efficient manner. Okay, we're probably funding old programs that don't. That's why our interchange, that's why our roads don't get any better. That's why our schools don't get better. We're likely funding a bunch of stuff, just like happens with a business. I take it back to I would take it all the way down to my household income. Occasionally, like every 2 months, I have to go cancel Paramount Plus. I got no idea how that ends up, but things just end up in your budget over time and they pop back up. And if you took $42 billion in Paramount Plus and did the state equivalent of that, it's going to be a lot of money, right? We need to stop spending money where we shouldn't be spending it and start spending it in places that move the ball forward for us, okay? And I think so that I think I've this is what I want to do. I'm going to educate you guys about where all your money goes. And by the way, I also am going to be happy to continue driving around, and we're going to get everything online, and I'll be, for all those that want to sit through it, I'll be coming around and doing sessions on how you can see where all your money goes. I'm excited about doing that. So I feel like 4 years in this seat doing that, if I can change the way that South Carolinians look at money, then we can really change the trajectory of the state. It's a great state. I mean, I just love this state. Great state. We got the sky's the limit for us. We can be the freest, best financially run state in the country. Small state, it's all manageable. We just got to have the will to do it. So, y'all have any questions? Yes, ma'am.
What are your thoughts, Mike, on the South Carolina Doge? It's new.
Yeah.
It would be helpful.
Yeah. So I was the first green check mark they gave out as Doge SC. Really like the initiative. I think Ram's a real visionary in what he's done, and I met him. Maybe it was about a year ago. Maybe it was first or so week in March last year, and there's a great opportunity essentially to Doge the state in the seat. That's what I'm wanting to do, right? That I think in this type of environment, saying I want to Doge the state's fine. You guys all understand what it is. Some people just get all wrapped up in the things that didn't go well when they hear that. But y'all know what I want to do. We're going to be sure we're only paying bills that we should be paying, going for efficiency, recommending efficiencies. That's what I want to do. I've built out also, inspired by Ram, I've built out a really nice leadership council of some very successful business people that also want to Doge the state. So I'm excited about that. Yeah, sure. Other questions? Yes, sir.
How do you feel about the accountability of our universities and colleges?
Man, I wish you hadn't asked me that question. If I had the opportunity to just be like a heat-seeking missile at that inefficiency and graft and how off mission I think they are, I would, and I just paid for a Clemson University tuition, and I'm probably going to be paying for USC tuition, but I feel like they are so off mission right now, and that there's no incentive for them to change. It's really frustrating to me, and it's really expensive, and they're saddling people with debt. I'll pause there, but I'll get worked up. I get worked up at that. I don't know. I mean, I'll be honest with you. I don't know. It's something I've touched on. I mean, the reality. So look, I mean, I'm like right now. I'm still on the outside with you guys, right? I'm just one of the people that was sitting in the chair just running for office. I've not been elected, so I know only what people tell me. But I can tell you, I've been told this would be a good year to go after them because the football teams weren't that good. But when the football teams are good, you got no chance. Which is so stupid. It just kills me. I like, you know, these are big institutions that are. My last thing on this, we're a conservative state. I mean, like I put out a vision thing on my vision for the state. I don't understand why we don't have conservative universities. Why not? I mean, if you want to picture like the South Carolina that I want, we're running a tight financial system. We've got low regulation. We've got conservative universities that, by the way, I mean, like when I'm talking about conservative, I mean, you don't have these, well, the dorm rooms have already been built, but like all these plush dorm rooms and stuff are silliness to me, that are focused on educating kids for the market we have and as inexpensively as possible. And that is not what we have right now. We've got like daycare for 19-year-olds. It's ridiculous. Yeah. Yes, sir.
So Mike, how do we make universities accountable when we dole out the educational lottery funds to them when they have billion-dollar foundations and bank accounts?
Yeah.
The education foundation, according to everybody, for the children.
Right. Well, so this is one of the issues that washed me out in '98. That was the year of the education lottery, and video poker was a big year. But my premise is that if we passed the lottery and we had funds for the lottery, what would happen is, and I'm confident that it did. So if you get lottery tuition, you get an additional like $2,500 to $5,000 a year. Tuition is just going to go up $5,000 a year, which it did. Right? Because government funded it. And so we essentially gained nothing out of that. In my mind, I don't think we gained anything. And except now we have state-sanctioned gambling, and I think that's regressive for poorer people, and I don't like it.
We're paying millions of dollars to try for EV studies.
Yeah.
For Scout.
Yeah.
Shouldn't Scout be paying for that?
I don't understand why we didn't get warrants and share options in Scout for putting up that kind of money. I don't understand these things. Yeah, I mean, like we should be, if they do well, in my mind, if they do, like, you heard they're coming back for more money.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, like, so if I made an investment, if I personally made an investment in a company and they came back and they said, man, we have really messed up. We need more money. We haven't hit the dollars we were supposed to hit. What I see is increased risk. And so that next ask is going to be much more expensive, and it's going to come out of their hide and share options and more value. And I want my money back. You can have it, but it's going to be we're going to convert everything to a loan that has an interest rate. I mean, yeah, it's
data centers who have a fixed income for the next 30 years.
Right. Yeah, right. I know. We all of our Department of Commerce could benefit by watching Shark Tank or something. Yes, ma'am.
About the large corporations coming into South Carolina.
Right.
You may not be able to control USC or Clemson, but there should certainly be control of tech schools.
Yes.
And what they're teaching and making sure that the people that we're bringing in for educating youth to be able to get a job. The other issue, and if you come to this state, at York Tech, Akuma, which is a North Carolina company, basically owns an entire part of the building. So it doesn't make any sense when you have like a Spartanburg or you have these other tech schools. Why isn't Scout making the investment to make sure that they have workers? The other issue I want to bring up about these large companies that get these enormous tax breaks for coming here and then ask us for $1 billion, and then Scout's asking for $200 million because they got to switch over to gas. It's not going to be electric.
Right. Right.
But as a small business owner, these huge corporations come into South Carolina and there's absolutely no control on how they pay their vendors. They are allowed to walk in here 30 days, oh, we're sorry, now you're at 90 days because our corporation is in
Right, yeah. They string it out.
And there has to be, you're not gonna have any small.
Yeah. So James, right? James and I were talking about this earlier. South Carolina is not friendly to small business. It's not like I don't want to say that I think our state government dislikes small business. I think they just don't know how to foster and tend to and support and encourage small business. It's just like they just take it for granted, and that means they kind of put the heel on it. Yeah. Yeah.
When you're finding these gaps, 1.8 billion, why don't you develop programs where a small business can come in and get a low or no interest loan, which, we could pay back, or we could foster, we could hire more people, we can educate more people.
Well, I love that idea. I love the idea, and I'm not, I'm the accountant here, but I am going to have some views of finance, and I think you're the first person who's mentioned that to me. But think about what that 3 or 4 billion dollars. And y'all know, by the way, I'm gonna put a pin on this. Y'all know the next best offer was like 150 million out of Mississippi. Okay, so we way overshot this. Think about if that money had been put into loans to help small businesses in South Carolina. Think about that investment. I mean, that would have been amazing and visionary. Instead, it was just stupid. Yeah.
Vast experience. The SBA does nothing but shine a seat with their ass.
I've tried that route before too. It was useless. Yeah. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
I'm the one who can't see. So, what are your thoughts on the current regulatory reform efforts in the state house to reduce regulations? And how do you think the regulatory burden in the state affects the state's funds and how much money the state is spending? Do you see any relations there?
Sure. Yeah. Okay. I was fortunate enough back in December to be invited to go up and meet Governor Youngkin's Secretary of Finance. Probably something I should talk to y'all about. Governor Youngkin kind of famously used AI, and it was one of the tools that Ron was using, used AI to trim out regulations. Much of it was in building regulations and stuff that wasn't necessary. I think we have to deregulate. I mean, we've just got too many rules. One of the things that's classic with government is where government bureaucrats are given the latitude to interpret law using guidance and essentially put the thumb screws to small business by telling them vague reasons that they can't do things or causing them fines and things like that. That needs to stop. The regulatory state in South Carolina has to be reined back in. It's outside of the purview of my office, but not outside of the purview of my voice. Okay, I'm going to be I plan to win the seat. I'm going to be a constitutional officer. I'm going to be looking at that money coming in, and I'm going to say, if the state is looking at money coming in, we'd be more prosperous if we got rid of all these regulations, and people would be happier, and we'd have more employment. So we're way over regulated in this state right now, and that needs to be pared back. That's my view on it, and that should be measurable too. In if we can get the right economists to help us figure that out. Yeah. All right. Thank you.
So what you didn't know about the Comptroller General, and when I say it's a reform election this cycle, that's a really critical piece. Having a governor who's reform-minded, having an attorney general who's reform-minded, having a money man who's reform-minded. This is an extraordinary opportunity for us in this cycle. Did I mention June 9th? Yes. Okay. You'll probably hear me mention it again. In the meantime, we have James Burns, who is a sitting member of the Rock Hill School Board, and he wanted to share with you some of his experience there. He's been doing God's work down there. So.
Mike, I appreciate you. You teed it up very nicely for me because these are all Fort Mill residents, and I'm about to really shock you when you see where your tax dollars are going. And actually, how important your school board seats really are, because what I'm about to tell you, 90% of your school board members and your legislators probably don't even understand what's going on. So I'll start with myself first. Wrong way, huh? Okay, born and raised in Rock Hill, South Carolina. Went to Evanport, Ralston Road, graduated from Northwestern. Then went to the Citadel, graduated from the Citadel in 2005. From there, came back and joined my family business. We've been doing it for 103 years. Currently, I operate 5 franchise dealerships and 2 used car lots. So, my wife keeps getting on me and saying, how do you have time for this? And I'll be honest with you, I don't. But this is what's wrong with our government as we speak right now, is because the people that are busy paying taxes and working every day, they always make excuses of why not stand up. And I'll show you a picture here in a little bit why I do this. It's for my employees, because I joined the school board not because I wanted to. It was 2020, and we saw how horrific everything went. 2020, masks, vaccines, whatever you want to call it, the way they were kicking out kids for 24 days who weren't even sick out of school. Something had to stop. My wife was at home crying. My kids were sitting around learning nothing, but yet we were still paying for it. And that's the problem. So I called my local school board rep, who I knew, and I complained. I said, I want my tax dollars back. And you know what he said? And he laughed, and then we moved on. But anyway, he called me 2 months later and said, I need you to step up. And I'm not one to sit there and complain and not step up. So that's how I got onto this Rock Hill School Board. And from there, I saw how terrible the school systems were. And the people that the school board members that were running on, I wouldn't have them run a lemonade stand. And so then I started gradually recruiting people like Pete Nozel, and my friend was Melissa Harris in the back, who really cared. They came forward and they helped shoulder the weight and the burden and helped make the right decisions, because Melissa will tell you, common sense is not common in the school system. And you have to fight for the right for the kids every day. So I have 4 children, 15, 13, 10, and 9. So yeah, I'm in the middle of it right now. But I'm doing this for them. And the reason I'm going to run for Senate, and the reason I haven't announced I'm running for Senate yet, is because I don't know when I can announce. Either Wes Clymer can resign, he can win his race, or I have to run in 28. So everything's up in the air right now, but I promise you I'll be there when it's time. Like I say, I've been on this thing for 6 years. My last race was in 2024. I unseated a 24-year incumbent, and let me tell you, she needed to go, just like the other incumbent I unseated before that one. So I moved around seats just to keep unseating people. I think I'm the only school board member that's ever done that. So, my number one priority is education, of course. 47% of our state budget goes to education, and it's a shame that we're 47 in the nation. And when I start to show you, especially you Fort Mill residents, what your school board has done to you, you have a great school system. There's no doubt about it. You're number one in the state. But it's all on the backs of your small businesses. So infrastructure and investment after that. Guys, our roads and everything are dilapidated. It is beyond, it's time to get in front of this and move on and fix the problems we have at our doorstep. And this is my number one thing. Mike, thank goodness, I don't know if he's still in the room, but our broken tax system. We're the reddest state, and we pretend to be so friendly to businesses, but yet we're not. Someone was bringing up the corporate tax, the corporations coming in. Well, our corporate tax rate is 5%. Most of your legislators don't even know that. Well, I like to look at my competition because I have to know where we're going to go forward so we can compete in the future. North Carolina's at 3%, and by 2030, they're going to be down to 0. And we have no plan of combating that. We're going to stay at 5%. So what happens is we have to offer these large corporations $1.2 billion to come in here, and then they come back to the trough again for another $200 million. Then they put their corporate office in Charlotte. So we can go on, but the main culprit, the reason that I'm going to keep circling back to this, because the main culprit that no one seems to understand, and it's unfortunate in the South Carolina Constitution, is Act 388. Act 388, if you don't know what it is, and I know some legislators in here, when I bring this up, they cringe a little bit, because in 2006, the legislator, I don't know who headed it, who put this abomination forward, but they added a 1% sales to the sales tax, so a penny to the sales tax. And then they took all of the operational, for our school system, operational funds, and put that on top of the small businesses. And I'll break out here, if you get home tonight and you pull out your tax bill, you can actually see it. Every single year, Fort Mill School Board raises to the max their millage rate. It's 15 you can do. Every year. You can go back and look at the tapes, it's 15. 1 mil is $2 million. So do the math over the courses of years and years and years. And I'm going to show you, because I actually use my own business to show you how bad it is here compared to across the river, tax-wise for the small business. All right. The average home tax in 2000 was $1,580, and in 2025 is $3,100. That's a 96% tax increase in 25 years. Here's the kicker, the businesses that they really hit. This is my dealership in Rock Hill. In 2000, my taxes were the local taxes were $14,000. In 2025, it's up to $65,000. This is what Act 388 did. And people don't understand that's what it is. And so people sit there and they thank their politicians and everybody down in Columbia for lowering their main property tax. But what they don't understand is they destroyed small business. And you can't get around it. So this is Rock Hill. This is the same size dealership here in Fort Mill. It went from 2001 to 127,000 to 265,000 on one small business. That's $200,000 more than what I pay in Rock Hill. Do the math. That's one small business. You can't afford to do business because of the millage rates up here. They're through the roof. They're more than double what Rock Hills are. And the problem is you have school board members that don't understand this, and you have politicians that don't understand this either. And they're the ones that put this forward, and they sat there and bragged and talked about how they lowered your taxes.
How many employees did that cost you right there? How many off the top of your
I have to hire more employees to make more gross revenue. I have to compete. And this is a small business, and we have to compete with everyone else. So the 265,000. I have to make that up. It's usually about 2.6 million for me to cover that. And by the time I pay my employees, pay on bills and everything else. So you can do the math. You can see how important a school board member really is. One to stand up and say something. Enough is enough. Right now, Fort Mill, I know, has $80 million sitting on impact fees. We have no impact fees. You have the highest millage, probably one of the highest millage rates in the state. So this is why I want to run for state senate, because nobody understands this, and it has gone past everyone else, and it's time for something to change, because we can't keep going down this road with Act 388, and it's going to be hard. So unfortunately, like I said, it's in the South Carolina Constitution. So we have to figure out a way to cut taxes and all these surpluses we have every year. Find a way to take this off the backs of the small business. Go ahead, Ryan.
Thanks, James. So just a quick question for you, just to make sure I understand this Act 388, because I want to explain it to my parents at home, so they know how to vote. But the tax rates that you're talking about on small business, are these corporate taxes, property taxes?
These are your local property taxes.
Local property taxes on businesses versus homeowners, right?
Correct.
All right, thank you very much. I just wanted to
Similar thing. So, what are you suggesting in terms of, are you basically laying out that the school board's important because you think there's a lot of waste in the school system,
Tons of waste.
and that's where you want to make the money back. Like, because I can tell you, I mean, I'm not. I know you got a bunch of small business owner here, but at the end of the day, if you tell me you got to have property tax on your home versus small business, I'm gonna keep it this way 100% of the time, because property tax on your home brings up a whole other issue of legitimate property ownership, and that's your home, right? So I don't like the idea, and I know most conservatives don't like the idea that you even have to pay a property tax on a piece of property you own that you live in. So if it's A versus B, no matter how much I agree with your general principle that you want to encourage small business to have low taxes, I'm never going to want to shift that back on the homeowners.
Well,
Guess what? You're not going to have
Exactly.
75% of your employers are small businesses. You're going to have no income generation.
that's the thing. Our state right now is pushing really hard to get rid of the income tax. What good is a zero income tax if you don't have a job?
You're talking about the state income tax, but we were just talking about.
We have to attract business to South Carolina. We have to be a more business friendly state.
I don't disagree with you. I just think it's going to be a hard sell. I mean, there could be other options, but if your suggestion is to put it back on homeowners.
I'm not suggesting put it back on homeowners. I'm suggesting to cut it out of the school systems. I brought in here my 2025 property tax bill. So if you go home and check yours, most of the time you get this, all you do is you go straight to see what you paid in taxes, and that's it. If you go and look, for my home, my gross taxes were set right at $8,000. But then they have in here a school tax credit of $4,800. So which brought my tax bill down to $3,100. Well, they sent it to my dealership, my little small business. So I'm more than paying that little $4,800 that they say they saved me. So this is how it works, and this is the shell game they play, and it's not right for small business. So this is also why I'll be running. Go ahead.
I just want to point out a couple of things. For this gentleman's point, this is talking about property taxes.
Yes.
And the folks that are shouldering the burden that they took off homeowners are anybody that owns real estate that is taxed at 6%. So you're talking about all commercial real estate.
Correct.
And non-owner occupied residential
Correct.
properties, all the rentals.
So rental homes, so if you got a property management company and the millage rate goes up from the school system, the first thing that hits is those rental homes, and then those property management companies are forced to raise the rents. So the poorest are getting hit the hardest.
But I think there are probably a lot of people in Fort Milton who are real happy that apartments are getting taxed.
Yeah. The apartment rents are more expensive than the mortgage.
And the other sort of nuance as well is the other thing that Act 388 did was make the social transfer of interest, which means that rather than just getting revalued countywide every 5 years as required in the statutes, and there's a cap on how much it can go up to 15%, anytime you transfer a property, with various exceptions like family transfers, that kind of thing. But if you sell a piece of property, that's an assessable transfer of interest. The county can then go reassess that property based on what you sold it for to increase the value of that property. And
Correct.
there isn't a 50% cap on that. So I think when you look at those differences, it's not just millage that we're talking about.
Oh no, it's
It's also that assessable transfer of interest. where
Correct.
The county was trying to recapture some of that lost revenue that they were getting because of the property values going up like they have in our area. So I think it's not just the millage rate, it's the valuation as well.
correct.
I'm glad you're here. How many people in this county really understand this economics right here? Is this talking the school system?
I can promise it's not talking school system.
You don't understand, they've got to be educated.
That's the problem. Nobody. There's only a few people that understand the tax code in South Carolina because it's so complex.
Good question. You'd be running for state.
Yes.
What's your solution for this?
I'm going to throw something at you. State of Texas, state of Florida, state of Tennessee, they're throwing a 3 to 5% or 3-cent increase sales tax. Dropped a bunch of other states. Florida's looking at stopping all income as far as property taxes.
Correct.
Because everyone shares the burden. If you're buying, whenever you buy food, whenever you buy a car, you know.
It affects all of us in some sort of way.
But it needs to spread out over a bigger base affordability to where you or AMSI or whatever dealership.
You must be a part of this.
I know you, Chris Katie, and bunch of
Okay.
But just the fact that you're paying that much just on $1 food, that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Okay? And I agree with you. I don't want to see my home income tax go up either. But there's got to be a viable solution that other states have used and have been profitable with.
Right. Well, this was done because businesses don't vote. They played a shell game. They lowered your personal property taxes, and then they said, "Oh, look, I lowered the taxes," and then walloped all the business owners over the head. That's all it is.
So instead of the business owners in the back here, instead of increasing 30% of prices, putting it on business they can't compete.
Imagine with the rent and here in Fort Mill on a small, I don't know, next to a grocery store would be because of what the owner of the shopping center has to pay. I don't want to take all y'all's, because I know we've gone over time, but when I won my second school board race, my employees surprised me with this in the shop. This is who I'm here for. They make my life easy to where I don't have to beat my head against the wall at work so I can go out and help them, help their families with the school systems and our government.